Hello there, warm welcome. You're watching Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. These are the stories making headlines. High security in the Malian capital Bamako as the 27th Africa-France summit kicks off. 30 African heads of state are attending, as well as the French leader François Hollande. The summit will focus on security, economic development and migration. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari leads talks in Gambia to convince President Yahya Jammeh to step down peacefully. Jammeh contests the results of last December's elections. The African Union says it will cease to recognise him after January the 19th. And football fans worldwide anticipate the start of the Africa Cup of Nations. The continent's biggest football tournament kicks off on Saturday in Gabon when the hosts go head-to-head with debutants Guinea-Bissau. But first, we begin in the Malian capital, Bamako, where the 27th Africa-France summit had kicked off this Friday under tight security. Well, topping the agenda will be the security and economic development, as well as migration. 30 African heads of state will take part in the summit, this alongside the French President François Hollande. Well, before heading to Bamako, Hollande visited 4,000 French troops fighting jihadists in the town of Gao. This weekend marks the final Africa-France summit for the French leader, who will step down in a little over 4 months' time. Anka Ulka reports.
A red carpet stretched across the runway at Bamako's airport as Mali welcomed ministers from at least 30 African nations to an Africa-France summit. It's been 4 years since Mali called on France to help fight jihadists in its northern region. And for France's top diplomat, holding the yearly summit in its capital is symbolic.
It's a chance to bring up all the threats that exist. The common threats, the terrorist threat, the security threat, but also to talk about the future, to talk about hope, and in particular, to talk about all the development projects which are underway in all African countries.
About 4,000 French troops remain in the country and across the Sahel region. Earlier on Friday, French President François Hollande met with some of them at the French military base in Gao. France has trained more than 20,000 African soldiers each year since 2013, a number that's expected to jump to 25,000 by 2020. The training aims to minimize the need for direct military intervention in African conflicts. It fits the theme of African unity and independence, strong at this year's summit.
The challenges that Mali is facing in terms of terrorism, in terms of environmental issues when it comes to development, we need to prioritize our partnerships. And these partnerships should be first and foremost inter-African partnerships.
Security is one of the top issues on the agenda for the summit, along with governance and the persistent flow of African migrants to Europe. African leaders are expected to discuss political crises, notably in Gambia and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, whose presidents have both refused to stand down at the end of their terms. They will also discuss ways to stem the huge flow of migrants from Africa to Europe. Many European nations have pledged increased aid, with France pledging 4 billion more euros in aid and loans over the next 3 years.
3 years after the murders of Radio France International's journalists Ghislain Dupont and Claude Verlon in Mali, protesters gathered here in Paris this Friday calling for answers. Demonstrators say they want both French and Malian authorities to make headway in the investigation. It comes amid claims that France has classified some relevant documents as secret, while insecurity in Mali has prevented the inquiry from advancing there. Well, Claude and Ghislaine were killed on November the 2nd, 2013, while working in the Malian city of Kidal. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has been leading a regional delegation in the Gambian capital this Friday in a bid to convince President Yahya Jammeh to step down when his mandate expires next Thursday. Well, Jammeh, who narrowly lost elections to Adama Barrow last December, initially conceded defeat, but later contested the results. Well, the African Union, meanwhile, is running out of patience and has warned that as of January 19th, it will no longer recognise Jammeh as president. France 24's Simon Harding has the details.
Stopping Adama Barrow from taking charge of the country, whatever the cost. That is what outgoing President Yahya Jammeh is trying to achieve in the Supreme Court, a race against time for Jammeh, whose mandate at the head of Gambia should expire next Thursday. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is acting as a mediator between the two men as he tries to avoid a political catastrophe. In Nigeria's capital, Abuja, Parliament has gone so far as to consider giving Yahya Jammeh asylum.
What we are trying to do at this point in time is create a soft landing for Yahya Jammeh. Give him alternatives so that he relinquishes, does the right thing, but we don't also throw him under the bus because we're all African brothers, and as leaders, we must provide the alternatives for him.
The winner of December's presidential election, Adama Barrow, says there is no need for President Yahya Jammeh to seek asylum, stating he was confident direct talks could solve the crisis. However, outside pressure is starting to pile up on Jammeh. The leaders of ECOWAS want to convince him to step down from power without clashes on January 19th. But that is not the view of the outgoing leader, who has called out against foreign intervention.
What is clearly incontrovertible is that the decision of ECOWAS on the current situation to implement the results of the December 1st, 2016 election by whatever means possible is totally illegal, as it violates the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of member states.
The Gambian leader has called for a peaceful resolve of the conflict, but rejects the results of the December 1st elections. Adama Barrow has nonetheless refused outright that his rival's mandate be extended.
Well, time to bring you a quick look at some other stories making headlines on the continent. The Obama administration is to lift a 2-decade-long trade embargo against Sudan, a move which will see its assets unfrozen and financial sanctions removed. It comes in response to Juba's assistance in fighting the Islamic State and other terror groups. The removal of sanctions will be, however, delayed by 180 days to encourage Sudan to do more to improve its human rights record. There was brief but heavy gunfire in Ivory Coast's second city on Friday amid talks between the leaders of an army mutiny and the government. Today's unrest sparked fears that a 2-day revolt, which began in Bamako last week, could reignite. Negotiators for the mutineers said the shooting was simply soldiers expressing anger, but the government allegedly reneged on a deal. In Benin this Friday, the military and police prevented a protest by journalists which was due to take place in front of the Audiovisual and Communication Authority. Journalists are calling for 6 media outlets which have been closed for 2 months now to be reopened. Authorities say administrative problems are behind the closure. The media outlets reportedly belong to family members of the opposition and the ex-presidential candidate Sébastien Adjavon. Morocco's Interior Ministry says a ban on making and selling burqas is set to come into effect next week. Manufacturers and retailers have been ordered to get rid of their burqa stock within 48 hours. According to local media, criminals have repeatedly used the garment to commit crimes. The move comes as Morocco tries to crack down on religious extremism and step up security. Brian Quinn reports.
A busy shopping district in Morocco's capital of Rabat. Vendors here no longer permitted to stock the burqa. An order from the country's Interior Ministry, reported in local media earlier in the week, banned the garment from production, import, or sale. Observant women in Morocco often wear a headscarf known as the hijab. The niqab, a veil over the face leaving only the eyes uncovered, is seen more often in Salafist communities in the country's north. The burqa, a full head and body garment with a grill covering the eyes, is rare in Morocco, seen more often in very conservative Muslim countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan. Among Moroccans, reaction to the ban has been mixed.
I'm against this ban. It's unfair. Why didn't they prevent girls from wearing indecent clothes or ban bars, alcohol, cigarettes? They only ban certain things, and these are our things.
I'm in favor of banning the sale of the burqa. You can't recognize the people who are wearing it. I mean, are they men or women? And it's conducive to terrorism.
The Interior Ministry is said to have cited security concerns in the decision, saying the garment had been used by bandits to perpetrate crimes. The move comes as Morocco is cracking down on Islamic extremism in the country, hoping to head off the kind of terror attacks that have struck its North African neighbors. Morocco says it has broken up 160 domestic terror cells since 2002. thousands of jihadists from the Salafist north have left to fight in Syria and Iraq. Though the burqa is now illegal to sell, it remains unclear if Morocco will forbid its wearing in public, or if the ban might extend to the niqab.
And finally, in less than 24 hours' time, the 31st edition of the Africa Cup of Nations is set to kick off in the West African nation Gabon. Over the course of 23 days, 16 teams will play a total of 32 matches. Spectators and players alike look forward to an intense competition, which will start when host Gabon take on the debutants, Guinea-Bissau. France 24's Laurent Bursticker has the details.
Gearing up for Africa's most prestigious sporting event, Guinea-Bissau is one of 16 teams that will compete in this year's African Cup of Nations. It's the first time the small West African country has reached the competition's final stage after finishing first of its qualifying group. The team will now hope for another upset against host country Gabon to continue its fairy tale run.
We have to give it our all for our fans. We need to give them something to cheer for, because the whole country will be watching us.
Gabon and Guinea-Bissau will meet Saturday at 5 p.m. in Libreville's Stade de l'Amitié, which can host up to 40,000 people. Burkina Faso and Cameroon will then go head-to-head in the second game of Group A at 8 p.m. Before the competition kicks off, French-Senegalese rapper Booba is set to perform in the opening ceremony.
It's a huge event in Africa. We're rooting for all the teams, but also Senegal, as someone with Senegalese roots. I'm here to sing so that people have a good time, and may the best team win.
With countries such as Ivory Coast, Algeria and Ghana all eager to make a good showing, this year's African Cup of Nations remains wide open. The final game will be held on February 5th in Libreville.
The Africa Cup of Nations set to kick off tomorrow. There'll be more from your Eye on Africa team in about 40 minutes' time. Do join us then.
Hello there, this is Live from Paris on France 24.
Get connected with France 24 social media. Take the first step. Tweet, like, become a fan of, break away from your TV. Find another dimension. Become even more linked up to the news with France24.com, together with our mobile and tablet apps. France 24. Get a connected view of the world.
Special event.
The 47th World Economic Forum takes place in Davos from the 17th to the 20th of January. Over 3 days, heads of industry and political leaders will discuss and debate the major issues at stake in 2017. Trump's presidency, Brexit, the refugee crisis, and many other topics. Join our special correspondents for the daily debates and coverage on tomorrow's economy. Don't miss Davos 2017 on France 24 and France24.com.
Revisited, presented by Stuart Norval.
Italy. 7 years after the earthquake that left more than 300 dead and 70,000 affected, L'Aquila has yet to recover. As new tremors hit the region, residents accuse authorities of abandoning them. The government puts a great part of the blame on the mafia and declares it is fighting them. Earthquakes, corruption, and organized crime, a potent mix that's emptying the city of its people.
Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.